Malaysia Airlines confirms it has lost contact with the plane carrying
where Malaysia Airlines is reporting they have lost contact.
239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Almost a decade has passed since the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, and the fate of MH370 remains one of history's greatest aviation mysteries. We will review the evidence received to date and explore some popular and unconventional theories about what could have happened. Watch until the end as we reveal lesser-known reports and findings that might surprise you. We will now briefly recap the sequence of events involving MH370 when it initially occurred.
Delivery Malaysia 370, good morning.
Malaysian 370, standby.
At Kuala Lumpur International Airport, a Boeing 777 is preparing for departure. MH370 is a daily passenger flight between Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia and Beijing, China. In the cockpit, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, 53 years old, is in command. He is an experienced pilot who has been with the airline for 33 years and has accumulated over 18,000 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot is First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, 27 years old. Flight 370 was his final training flight on the Boeing 777-200 aircraft, and he had accumulated 2,763 hours of flying experience. The plane is carrying 10 cabin crew and 227 passengers of 14 nationalities, with the majority being 153 Chinese passengers.
Right of takeoff. Nice. Thanks for the right, Malaysia 37. Thank you.
Flight 370 is then expected to signal air traffic control in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam as it is about to enter Vietnamese airspace.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysia 370.
That is the last communication with the plane. The aircraft suddenly vanished from radar screens 1 minute and 43 seconds after its last communication. The last definitive sighting on civilian radar showed the aircraft flying northeast across the Gulf of Thailand. The positional tracking in this case relies on a signal emitted by one of 2 transponders on the aircraft. Therefore, if the signal disappears, it indicates that both transponders stopped functioning or that someone on board manually deactivated the system. The captain of another aircraft attempted to contact the crew of Flight 370 shortly after 1:30. Using the International Air Distress Frequency, in order to relay Vietnamese air traffic control's request for the crew to contact them. The captain reported being able to establish communication but heard only mumbling and static. Few days after the occurrence, it was reported that the Malaysian military's primary radar showed the aircraft made a sharp left turn to a southwesterly direction. It then continued across the Malay Peninsula and the Strait of Malacca. Analysts believe that the aircraft's last position was in remote waters off Australia's west coast, far from any landing sites. On March 24, 2014, Malaysia Airlines concluded that the aircraft had gone down in the southern Indian Ocean.
Flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
The disappearance of Flight 370 triggered the largest ever multinational air-sea search, involving ships and airplanes from at least 14 countries. The initial search was called off in January 2017 after failing to find any trace of the plane within a 710,000+ square kilometer area of the Indian Ocean. The search is estimated to have cost $151 million. In any airplane incident or crash, the investigators' primary goal is to search for and locate the black box, unraveling the events that led to the accident. Now, let us understand exactly what a black box is in a passenger aircraft. The black box consists of two bright orange units located at the rear of the airplane. They are colored orange for easy identification in the event of a plane crash. The CVR, or cockpit voice recorder, records the last 2 hours of crew conversation and communication with air traffic control. The FDR, or flight data recorder, stores the last 25 hours of flight data, capturing at least 88 parameters such as altitude, airspeed, and heading. The mystery of Air France Flight 447 was solved after the plane's two black boxes were discovered 2 years after the crash in the Atlantic Ocean on June 1, 2009. In March 2015, 1 year after the plane's disappearance, it was reported that the battery powering a black box's locator beacon had expired over a year before the incident. The batteries of MH370's locator beacons were supposed to last 30 days. However, the expired battery means that crews searching the southern Indian Ocean likely wouldn't have picked up a signal from the black box, even if they were floating right over it. At the time of making this video, the black boxes of MH370 have not been found. Even if the cockpit voice recorder is recovered, there is no certainty that the mystery of the disappearance can be solved. In another separate crash that occurred in 1997, the pilot of Silk Air Flight 185 was believed to have deliberately switched off the cockpit voice recorder and committed suicide by crashing the plane into a river. Although this CVR was later recovered, there was no recorded data from the moment it was switched off leading to the crash. Therefore, MH370 could face a similar outcome if the pilot's actions were deliberate. On July 29, 2015, a group of people discovered a 7-foot-long metallic object covered in barnacles while cleaning up a beach in Reunion, a small island to the east of Madagascar. Aviation experts promptly recognized the object as a flapron, a section of an aircraft wing. Internal markings, including dates and serial numbers, definitively confirmed that the flapron belonged to Flight 370. Over the span of a decade, numerous parts of at least 31 items belonging to passenger aircraft were found, primarily along the beaches and shorelines of southeastern Africa. These include potential items belonging to the passengers of Flight 370. Out of these items, 18 were categorized as likely, highly likely, or almost certain to have originated from Flight 370, with only 3 confirmed. The remaining 11 could not be identified. We will now review some of the plausible as well as unconventional theories regarding the disappearance of Flight 370. Shortly after the disappearance of the aircraft in March 2014, Chris Goodfellow, a Canadian Class 1 instrumented-rated pilot for multi-engine planes with over 20 years of experience, shared his theory, suggesting that the most likely explanation for the disappearance was a fire, possibly an electrical fire on board. He proposed that the pilots deviated from their course to attempt an emergency landing at the nearest suitable airport, Langkawi, which would explain the plane turning back in the direction of Malaysia. However, the crew succumbed to smoke inhalation before they could safely land the plane. Later, when information on the flight path was subsequently revealed, this theory faced skepticism and criticism among aviation experts and investigators for several reasons. The satellite data suggests that the aircraft continued to fly for several hours after losing contact with air traffic control, following a complex and intentional flight path inconsistent with a rapid descent due to a fire. In addition, the actions of the aircraft, including deliberate course changes and altitude variations, indicate intentional human intervention rather than a loss of control due to a fire. It has happened before that the pilots of a passenger plane suffered incapacitation due to hypoxia and crashed after running out of fuel. On August 14, 2005, Helios Airways Flight 522 crashed because the crew had neglected to set the pressurization system to automatic during takeoff checks. This caused the plane not to be pressurized during the flight, resulting in nearly everyone on board suffering from generalized hypoxia. However, some aviation experts debunked this theory for a simple reason: the actions of MH370 were deliberate. The aircraft disabled its communication with ATC, including its transponder and satellite communications, and changed course to avoid areas with radar coverage. The hypothesis of hijack by remote control suggests that a third party gained unauthorized access to the plane's software and assumed control.
Wolf, we found documents for a patent that Boeing applied for 10 years ago. It's for a system that could enable a plane to be flown by remote control from the ground in an emergency. The system hasn't been deployed. One of our experts says if it had, this Malaysia Airlines incident may well have turned out very differently.
The ground controller could now take control away from the pilots so that they wouldn't have control over the throttles, over the yoke, over the rudder pedals, and now this would be handled by the ground. So everything now that the pilots would try to do would be inconsequential.
With this idea, pilots could flick a switch when under stress. Sensors in the cockpit could go off, or sensors on the cockpit door could activate the ground autopilot if a certain amount of force was used against the cockpit door. Has Boeing advanced this idea from 10 years ago? Is the company still testing it out, or has it scrapped the idea entirely? We tried multiple times to get information from Boeing on this project. The company would not speak to us about it. Wolf.
According to the safety investigation report published in July 2018 by Malaysian authorities, Boeing has verified that it has not integrated the patented system or any other technology enabling remote piloting of commercial aircraft. Additionally, the company is unaware of any Boeing commercial aircraft that has adopted such technology. Florence de Changy, a French journalist, published a book called The Disappearing Act, which presents her own explanation, drawing on numerous eyewitness testimonies, press releases, independent investigative reports, and expert opinions. De Changy's cargo theory is also featured in an episode of Netflix's 2023 documentary series on the disappearance of MH370.
It's public knowledge that China was very eager to acquire highly sensitive US technology in the field of surveillance, stealth, drone technology.
According to de Changy, MH370 was supposedly carrying 2.5 tons of electronics delivered under escort and loaded onto the plane without being scanned by X-ray machines. These gadgets could have been highly sensitive US technology that China illicitly obtained. As a result, de Changy believes that flight MH370 was brought down by the United States Air Force after they failed to intercept the plane to seize the shipment of electronic equipment heading for Beijing because the US didn't want China to have it. In short, de Changy presents the following ideas to support her theory that could explain the disappearance of Flight 370. Aviation experts have strongly criticized or disapproved of de Changy's ideas and theories, as well as the Netflix series on the MH370 incident as full of misinformation and disinformation. This theory suggests that one of the two pilots deliberately crashed the plane into the Indian Ocean to commit mass murder-suicide. For this theory to succeed, one of the pilots would have to request the other to leave the cockpit on some pretext. The pilot in the cockpit would lock the door and disable electronics to make the plane disappear from radar. After that, he turns the plane to the south and flies straight into the darkness, waiting for his fuel to run out. Then, he begins depressurizing the cabin, causing the passengers and crew to lose consciousness, while he uses the oxygen tank. Passengers who manage to put on their masks would run out of oxygen in about 12 minutes. After 6 hours of flight, the engine stopped running, and he pushes the nose down, crashing the plane. Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott has revealed Malaysian authorities believe the disappearance of flight MH370 was a case of pilot murder-suicide.
It was understood at the highest levels that this was almost certainly murder-suicide by the pilot, mass murder-suicide by the pilot.
However, the investigation report released by the Malaysian authorities in 2018 concluded that the real cause of the MH370 disappearance could not be determined. What lent the theory credibility was the evidence found at Shah's home, where researchers discovered data on a flight simulator showing that someone had plotted a course to the southern Indian Ocean. The captain's sister continues to defend her brother and believes he has been made a scapegoat. Shortly after Flight 370 disappearance, Sakinab Shah, the captain's sister, broke her silence to defend her brother.
He has health. He has wealth. Why would he want to be a rogue pilot? We know he was not the cause of the loss of MH370. It was never planned by him. Whatever happened, happened. He happened to be at the wrong place and the wrong time.
My recollection of Captain Zahari in my tenure as a chief pilot is that he's a trouble-free pilot.
The Captain Zahari that I know is a caring and loving person. He would not hurt a fly. Therefore, I do not believe any of these speculations made against him. In fact, as a captain of a plane, if anything were to happen to it, he would make sure that his passenger and crew are taken care of before he even thinks about himself.
However, a few articles published online in September 2018 portrayed another side of Captain Shah's personal life. His social media activities have been revealed, providing insight into the mental state of a man psychologists describe as self-destructive. One of the models he was obsessed with reveals that she was questioned by the police after the plane vanished. It turned out that Captain Shah was one of the model's followers in the model's social network and she doesn't know him. Psychologist Paul Dickens, who specializes in the mental health of commercial airline pilots, agrees that Shah was displaying some concerning signs. Aviation expert Jeffrey Thomas has also weighed in on the findings. The former chief pilot of Malaysian Airlines expresses that he emotionally rejects the pilot's suicide theory, as emotions are generally not driven by logic. On the other hand, he also shares his opinion from a logical point of view. According to him, logic is based on three things. Capability. The captain had the capability as he was trained to fly the plane. Opportunity. The captain had the opportunity as he was already sitting in the cockpit. Motive. However, this last missing piece of the puzzle is the motive, which is still unknown to date. In conclusion, there is no ground to support the pilot's suicide theory. All we can say is that this theory is plausible but not certain, and it remains inconclusive, until we find Flight 370.